Hello, everyone. Welcome to Arts Plus Change, hosted by the University of Rochester's Institute for the Performing Arts, in partnership with the Office of Engagement and Enrichment, the Paul J. Burgett Intercultural Center, Create a Space Now, the Eastman Institute for Music Leadership, and the ESL Rochester Fringe Festival. My name is Hetty Bornhill. My pronouns are she, they. I'm your conference host for this session with Jennifer Laiwint. I am a beautiful Black queer Amazonian. I'm 5 feet 11, but I'm sitting down. I'm wearing a brown, black, and cream plaid old paperboy style hat and a long t-shirt dress that is grayish brown, and I have a silver septum ring. We would like to acknowledge with respect the Seneca Nation, known as the Great Hill People and keepers of the Western Door, of the Haudenosaunee. We take this opportunity to thank the original caretakers of whose ancestral lands the University of Rochester currently resides in Rochester, New York. As we come together, we also acknowledge the need for commitment to constant action and attention surrounding the systemic issues that continue to impact all of us. The presenter has shared that has shared a sensitive content in today's session that will include discussion about traumatic brain injury as it relates to emotional injury and different forms of physical and emotional intergenerational trauma. Captions and live transcriptions are enabled. To view either of these, please select the boxes at the bottom of your screen. We are recording today's session, so please note that your spoken, written comments and image may be included. You are welcome to rename your Zoom profile with your first name only, and you are always welcome to turn off your video screen. Breakout rooms, if needed, will not be recorded. Because we have back-to-back sessions, this presentation will end promptly at its time. If you would like to connect with the presenter or other participants after the session, please email ur.ipa@rochester.edu. Thank you for joining us, and I am now honored to welcome Jennifer Laiwint, who is presenting Personal Injury.
Thank you so much, Hetty. And hi, everybody. My name is Jenny. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an interdisciplinary artist and filmmaker based in Toronto, which is also where I'm joining you from today. I just want to say thank you so much to Missy, Rachel, Hetty, and everyone involved in the Arts and Change Conference for this invitation and allowing me into this incredible gathering. The thoughtfulness and care woven throughout this program is truly palpable, and it's really inspiring. So thank you. I'm really grateful to be presenting alongside so many amazing artists too, with really multifaceted practices. And I'm excited for a lot of the presentations to come over the next days. So thank you, pre-warning that, and I also want to mention for anyone who benefits from a visual description, I'm a white woman, I have brown curly hair, I'm wearing a turtleneck that's like grayish blue, and my background is blurred, so that's me. Yeah. All right. So over the next hour, I'll be sharing some of the creative research and interdisciplinary artwork that kind of came bursting out of me while I was recovering from a traumatic brain injury I experienced in 2022, hence the title, Personal Injury. There will be a few interactive moments along the way with prompts. So you're welcome to respond in whatever way feels right for you. You're welcome not to respond and to just listen or reflect or just chill. So whatever you feel comfortable with, very low pressure. Um, yeah, so originally I wanted to call this presentation Personal Injury Lawyer, partly because I have a slightly deep obsession with personal injury lawyers and their commercials, mostly the culture around personal injury law. So and so much so that I decided to make a film about that, which is also called Personal Injury. Here's a little image of that. Yeah, so it's kind of drawing from my own experiences, but also this like growing interest in this form of law and the kind of marketing that goes along with it. So this is one project I'm working on. I'm I'm in pre-production now. This is for my MFA thesis in film production. So just like this is a little preview of another project that is also interrelated to this general theme around sort of thinking about how we can process, deal with, and advocate for ourselves and for our injuries, whether they're physical, emotional, relational. So hopefully you'll get to see this movie in theaters near you at this point in the future. So yeah, as I said, I became very obsessed with personal injury commercials. You know, the one, I think you probably know the ones. There's usually dramatic music, there's slow motion reenactments, there's like bold all cap texts, saying stuff like you deserve compensation. And the lawyers are often standing with hammers or mallets or crossed arms, looking quite, you know, like tough, like they'll be able to fight for you. So these are some of these billboards and ads. Maybe some of you remember Celino and Barnes. Like I also really appreciate the jingles and the catchiness. I love a good slightly over the top slogan and like low res, you know, local advertising. So Celino and Barnes are like a nostalgic for me. Maybe you remember this commercial if it'll play.
Like many things in life, experience can make a big difference. At Celino & Barnes, we have helped thousands of clients put their lives back together and recover what they deserve.
That dedication to each client has helped make us the area's largest personal injury law firm. So if you've been injured, call Celino & Barnes today and let us put our strength and experience to work for you.
Celino & Barnes, injury attorneys, call 854-2020.
Okay, so that's a classic of personal injury marketing. Needed to share. But yeah, so I'll just go. Oh, there's something just so earnest about the commercials and like theatrical about it. There's these big promises of representation and advocacy, and the insistence that you don't have to go through this, whatever you're going through. So yeah, like as much as I'm interested in these kinds of commercial tactics, I think underneath that interest is a real fascination with advocacy and a deeper interest in that and how we advocate for ourselves and who or what gets to be represented when we're dealing with injuries. What kinds of injuries are sort of legible enough to deserve representation or compensation, and also what happens to the ones that aren't deemed, you know, legible or worthy of legal advocacy. What like the type of injuries that are less tangible or visible, relational injuries, emotional ruptures, and intergenerational wounds. So I've been wondering whether a drawing or a dance might function as a kind of expressive form of advocacy, whether a performance could speak on behalf of an invisible wound. Can an artwork represent the needs and rights of a broken spirit in ways a lawyer wouldn't or couldn't dare to? I have a confession. When I was in the throes of my own recovery, I really wanted to sue someone. Basically, my life had been turned upside down. I had to stop my studies. I couldn't work. I couldn't look at screens. I couldn't do much of anything except lie in a dark room for extended periods of time. So I was desperate for some kind of formal recognition or compensation for a life that felt derailed. Back to this whole vibe of impersonal injury law. I really wanted one of these guys to have my back, basically. Someone who, in my imagination, would stand up to me boldly and fight for my cause. But I didn't have a case. The injury was a seemingly silly accident of my own doing. There was nobody to sue. I simply bumped my head on a steel fixture attached to a wall. There was no dramatic car crash, no visible wounds, no witnesses to how hard the impact was on my head. And because it didn't look serious, it wasn't really taken seriously in many ways. And, you know, a lot of the times I didn't take it seriously. But it was serious. And deep down, I think that longing for legal representation was also a longing to be seen, to have another voice that could articulate the impact that this injury had on me. I was really struggling to ask for what I needed, struggling to even know what I needed, and struggling to say no to things, struggling to communicate what I was feeling. It was all new. There was just a mishmash of symptoms that I was trying to navigate. And a lot of the times I didn't really know what was what, but I knew that something felt really off. And that everything seemed to be harder. So because I had a hard time, you know, setting boundaries, saying no to things, the injury became far more serious and debilitating than I think it needed to be. These are just, I will explain what some of these images are soon. Yeah, invisible injury, whether physical, interpersonal, or emotional, can make us and our needs and our rights feel invisible too. Eventually, for me, drawing, visual art became one of my most advocates. It became an outlet and a witness, a way to communicate the things I was containing or too afraid to say out loud. And it all started with a spiral. Yes, spiral. So the simple act of drawing a spiral ended up doing far more for me than any lawyer could. Earlier, I said that this whole body of work kind of came bursting out of me. And that's because for a while I've been very stuck inside because the sounds of the outdoors were too overwhelming for my brain. And lights were bright, but also creatively stuck. My work was in film and video and DJing, and I couldn't look at screens or even listen to music. So I felt really paralyzed. But a lot shifted when I encountered a prompt by cartoonist, writer, illustrator, and teacher, Linda Berry. So yeah, she has a saying that is called spiral your way in. And this is part of an assignment or an exercise to help people kind of connect with their creative voice and their memories, and it can get quite sort of personal too. So this prompt that around the spiral came from, and the spiral your way in thing comes from a New York Times article that Linda Berry wrote called Documenting All the Small Things That Are Easily Lost. So in it, she invites slowly draw a spiral for 2 minutes as a way of kind of accessing memories from a time before a loss or a major change. Yeah, and so the spiral and the act of drawing a spiral becomes a kind of point of entry into different scenes, snapshots in your mind, small sensory details, different kind of memories, and memories of people or places that hold significance. So even if we didn't consciously understand some of that significance at the time, through this act and through what kind of comes out afterwards, a lot sort of becomes known and revealed. So it seems like a simple act, like just drawing a spiral, almost disarmingly so simple. But for me, it really opened something up, and it helped me process sort of some strange and heavy moments from my recovery. So, and also importantly, it helped me recover my creative voice. So out of that one spiral came a flood of memories, images, curiosities, and eventually a visual language that connected to injury and my own recovery process that I've kind of been developing in different projects over the last few years. So a lot of the images I was showing came out of this exercise, actually, just this one spiral. And we'll also add some more context as I go. But for me, this spiral brought forward a lot of material about my head injury, which I'll share more later too. And for you, if you were to do this exercise, something, entirely different might appear or might emerge. But I would love to do a little exercise with you to see what happens. And if you do have an injury, whether it's physical or emotional or anything that you feel needs some kind of creative care or tending to, you're welcome to kind of bring that in and use that as a sort of internal focal point for this exercise, but it really doesn't have to be injury related. So I want to see more people. Okay. So this is, if people are open and willing, I'll just invite you to take a chance on this little exercise and try something new. So if you have a pen and a paper or a notes app on your phone, you could use a finger on your desk, or if you want to get up and move, you can also do this with your body and draw with your body in the space that you're in. And then I will ask you to draw a spiral using whatever tool you'd like, whether it's a pen, a cell phone, your finger, whatever you want. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be beautiful. Just let your hand move slow and steadily for about 2 minutes. And I will get a timer going soon, but does anybody have any questions before we kind of get started? And I will guide you through this exercise as well. I'm going to stop sharing. Yeah.
Is there a certain place our mind should be when we are doing the spiral? Like what should we be thinking about or not thinking about?
Yes. So I can give you some of the instructions now, and I can also repeat them again as you're doing it, if that can be helpful. But basically, as you draw, I'd really like you to imagine this. So this is kind of my own adaptation of Linda Berry's prompt, spiral prompt, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'd like you to imagine the spiral as a kind of sentient being, not just a shape, but something that can feel, something that can perceive, something that can witness, and just kind of what happens as you're drawing. And as the spiral comes into existence through your hand movement or whatever movement you're doing, notice how it feels. What does it feel? What does the spiral feel and see? What does it hold? What does it know? So you don't have to force anything, just kind of let your mind wander, let sensations surface, let images kind of drift in and out.
We also have a question in the chat, starting from inside out or outside in, from Destiny.
That's a really good question. Hi, Destiny. I think it's kind of probably starting from outside in with just like the actual physical gesture. Why can't I speak? You know what I mean. So the physical gesture and like the feeling of the pen or whatever it is in space and or on a piece of paper. So you are starting with that kind of like, yeah, more external connection. And you can also sort of pay attention to some of the outside sounds as well as you're doing this, or, you know, any kind of like vibrations or rhythms in the room. But as you're doing it, I think you can, maybe it might shift into something that becomes more internal. And that could happen through just paying attention to what thoughts are going on as you're doing it, or what sort of like bodily internal sort of sensations you might be feeling. How's your breathing, you know, as you're doing it. And yeah, how can some of those sensations get kind of imbued, or mediated, or even just like held by this form that you're drawing. So it's a bit of like a fusion between your own like physical and emotional feeling sentient self, and a kind of union or communion with this form. But it takes a bit of activity to get to that place, I guess. So the process of drawing was a process of connecting. Does that make sense? In some way, it's a little bit abstract. Yeah. And again, there's really no right or wrong for this. Like, it's just also could be just like a fun exercise that doesn't really go that deep. So does anybody else have any questions? Yes, Vivian, aka Mom. I can't hear you. You're muted, Mom. You have to unmute yourself. This is where the tech stuff, I think there might be a generational inheritance of tech. Yeah. Maybe you can type in the chat. Oh, you're unmuted now. Okay, I can't hear you, but I appreciate like the expression, and I feel like I hope I get to hear your question at some point. Any other questions that are coming up? Yeah, mainly just have fun with it. Yeah, if images come up too, or dreams or anything, that's all material that hopefully you can just kind of pay attention to and say hi to as you're doing this. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the
Jenny, your mother, Miss Vivian, did put something in the chat. She asked, what about the use of color when doing the spirals?
Yes, totally. If you want, I mean, we're gonna do a follow-up exercise where I think like color might come into play more, but yeah, go for it with colors. But I would say it's a very simple, minimal exercise. So if you just want to use pencil or pen, that's also okay. Yeah. All right. Everybody ready? I'm going to put a little timer on starting. Now. So you have about 30 more seconds. Ten more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Woo, this is my alarm. Woo. That was a horrible, spooky alarm. Um, cool. So if anybody wants to hold their spiral, now would be the time. I would love to see. Cool. Amazing. Woo. Oh, I love like the multiple ones, Mom. I love the variation between like, sort of tight and more like spacious. Cool. Very awesome. I'm curious to know, like, just before we get to the next thing, if anybody wants to share how that felt, or you could just like give a thumbs up or, yeah.
I figured I unmuted myself. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. I found from the outside in, I felt a little unbalanced. It didn't feel even. When I went from the inside out, it felt even more balanced, calmer in a way. Felt easier.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that you were able to notice that and also like, shift into something that felt better for you.
Yeah. And one more thing. I liked the sound of the pen on the paper.
Cool. That's awesome. I'm glad. Yeah. It's cool when you do something like that, that's intimate and quiet, what kinds of sounds emerge. That's great.
I agree with Mom. Oh, sorry, Hetty.
Yeah.
I agree with Mom. For me, starting the small and going outward, it felt less restrictive. It felt more, I felt a growth from moving outward and expanding. Doing it the other way, I felt like I was closing in on myself.
Interesting. That's so cool. I mean, it's cool to hear the kind of experience that you had and how like sort of powerful just this gesture can be and impactful on, our sense of balance or connection to our environment, ourselves. That's really interesting. Thank you. Yeah, Hetty.
A bit the opposite. And I think it's just because of my character. Always have to be reeled in a little bit sometimes. And so I went from outside in, and though I felt very present, I was concentrating just on pen on paper, but it was so calming,
Hmm,
so calming. And it felt timeless. And
cool.
then you started talking about time. Then the more you talked about time, the more I wanted to complete it. And I wanted to hurry up and get to that center. And so I start going faster and faster and faster to try to get to that center.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's poetic. If there's something that feels like infinite about the spiral form. And that, yeah, almost like you're, yeah, it's like could be a portal into another universe or something. Cool. Um, yeah, if anybody wants to share, I'd love to know. Or you can share in the chat. I'm seeing some interesting comments in the chat. Cool. Held memories, reinterpretations of old memories with different perspectives, new feelings emerging from old memories. Thanks, Destiny. I like not looking at the paper too much and just feeling the paper. Cool. This is really beautiful. Just also to hear like kind of multitude of ways that this one like little exercise affected people. Thank you for sharing. So the next part is just like a little moment, take maybe 30 seconds. You can, if you feel like turning off your screen, you can, or not. But basically, I just want you to take a moment to really like look at your spiral and connect with it. So you might want to touch the page or notice the lines, sort of the pressure, the texture, any kind of hidden shapes or forms or images that might emerge. Pay attention to what you see in the spiral. And what do you think the spiral sees in you? So yeah, take about 30 seconds to get to know each other. And I will start a little timer now. So this is just your moment with your spiral to connect. So when you feel ready, start kind of easing out of that little moment and the connection conversation that you had. And yeah, you can come back into the space. And then I'll get to the next step in this little exercise. So when you're ready, I would love for you to kind of find a way to translate creatively what that spiral holds, or anything from this, whether it was through the drawing gesture initially, or this connection that you may have formed. What might feel comfortable for you, and this doesn't necessarily have to be shared like in any explicit way. It could be just like, also you might continue the drawing, or you might want to write a few words or sentences. Maybe it's just movement, or just sort of like continuing to just sit and notice, but find a way to kind of like extend that connection, or expand on it in some way through maybe a different form, like drawing or something that you might not normally do. Yeah. So there's no real, like, also no rules or right way to do this, just kind of trying to integrate and extend what just happened into a creative moment as well, an active creative expression. So I'll just give you like a minute or two to do that. Yeah, so I'm going to start. Everybody ready to start that? Everybody feel okay? And again, if you just feel like chilling and just like letting your mind drift, that's also perfectly acceptable. So I'll give you about a minute or 2 minutes. And you're at the minute mark, so one more minute. Thirty more seconds. And 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Woo! Woo! Okay. So just briefly, I would love to know what came out of that. And that could, if anybody wants to share, maybe like a couple words or an image or a line or two in the chat. Amazing. Hetty danced. That's awesome. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah. Mom?
Jen? Because I have 8 spirals, I get a sense of movement and almost like the centers go into infinity and go into some other place in the universe.
Cool.
Oh, but I have to go.
Okay.
Here. Okay. I love your talk. Bye.
Thanks, Mom. Bye. Thanks for coming. Cool. Anybody else have a line that they want to share? Ooh. Cool. Oh my God, this is awesome. These all sound like real the like beginnings of really cool pieces of art or some kind of project. And yeah, I hope that maybe after this, if you have the desire to continue and develop these further, that maybe I can see them one day, or yeah, that it'll be a meaningful experience for you. So I'll just return to sharing my screen. Okay. Okay, so for me, when I did this on my own, this is I obviously had more time. I wasn't under like 2-minute time pressure. But when I tried this exercise on my own, this was sort of my own visual extension of that spiral that came through like this process of connecting. Yeah. And let's see. Yeah, just gonna move forward a little bit. Actually, I'm gonna skip a little bit of stuff, but basically, you know, when I did the Linda Berry version of this, the focus is really on memories and kind of like scenes in your mind, and to think about a time kind of before a lot may have changed in your life, or you may have lost something or somebody. So at that time when I was doing this exercise, my life had been basically subsumed by appointments with different kinds of specialists in neurooptometry, audiology, and osteopathy or osteopathy. And often I had to participate in like testing and rehabilitation processes with sometimes very bizarre protocols. And what came out of the spiral exercise in the original one was kind of a series of memories that started in a waiting room. So I'll just read like a couple excerpts from what I wrote after that. All right, these are some of the memories. I'm in the waiting area at the optometrist's office. It is polished, it's sterile, and feels expensive. All the glasses in the display cases are high-end. Tom Ford, Yves Saint Laurent, Gucci, and the like. I'm proudly wearing my $5 Value Village sunglasses. The ones that Sabrina at the front desk told me looked exactly like the Louis Vuittons they sell for $800. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. I'm happy to be in the far back waiting room, far enough away from the loud and thumping R&B music playing in the front. I always loved being close to the bass and relishing in pulsating, pumping beats. The harder, the better was my motto. Now pumping beats feels like hammers hitting my head repeatedly. 3, 2, 3, 4. Spiral thoughts, jaw clenches, eyes closed, breathe in. 4, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. Ah! The last 2 times I've been at this place, I had to ask them to turn off the music. As a former DJ, it hurts my heart every time I make this request. But for F's sake, I know they treat other people with concussions here, and yet the music is always so loud and pounding. 5, 2, 3, 4. Anger rises, spiral eyes, jaws clench even more. 6, 2, 3, 4. I can't be the only one that asks them to turn it down. In the background, I hear a loud, instructive voice. If all the lines were filled in, which figure would look exactly like the one on the top? This sounds familiar to me. Oh, I know what it is. It's the motor-free visual perception test. Yes, this is the test I took 2 weeks ago. Again, I hear the voice. If all the lines were filled in, which figure would look exactly like the one on the top? I hear a belligerent male voice respond with counter questions. I can't quite make out what he's saying, but I think he's attempting to confuse the optometrist who's administering the test. Well, since B is slightly askew and C has diagonal lines pointing on a 45-degree angle, and the half circle on D is further to the right, and if you were to reverse the triangle or rotate that part, well, then it's obviously A, says the man with renewed confidence. I'm struck by how sure he is of the answer. I remember when I had to take the same test, I doubted all of my answers and just wanted to put my Value Village sunglasses back on, shroud my head with my scarf, and leave the room. 2 weeks before. If all the lines were filled in, which figure would look exactly like the one on the top? Me? Can you repeat the question, please? If all the lines were filled in, I think it might be, maybe it's, well, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 99, 100, 101, 102. Let me see here. It's nearly 5 p.m. and the optometrist does not look amused. I'm gonna guess A. Good. Next one. No, I can't. She says one more time. If all the gaps were filled in, which shape would look exactly like the one on the top? Belligerent male voice. Well, if I rotate it around, why do they all? Well, clearly it's C. Good, she says. Next one. I wondered if me and this man both felt similarly confused and alone, but had different ways of showing. So there's more to this story. It's a little bit fragmentary because that's what memory can be like when you're kind of going back in a little bit of this kind of direct yet swirling, spirally way. A lot of inner voices that I was kind of sharing. So I'll just basically just kind of talk about this one little exercise that I mentioned, from the visual motor perception test. This is called visual closure. And this one exercise, just like the one prompt from Linda Berry, really kind of opened up something for me. And I'm going to just kind of like briefly share a few images and a little description, and then maybe have some time for questions. So yeah, like I said, this is part of a bigger kind of visual perception set of tests that you do through kind of vision rehab and therapy. Test that I found very interesting, which asks you of like close gaps of different images, your own perception or your imagination. So it's the test, like you have to, yeah, it's not really actually imagination based. I kind of took it into a more like more of a field of imagination. But if you want to try, this is kind of what it looks like. And these are images from another testing that I had to do during my rehab, where they kind of like tracked my eye movements and recorded them. Yeah, and these are other more from that test, from the visual closure test. So if you can see, they have the kind of full form, like of a flower, and then a kind of fragmented forms, and you have to kind of fill the lines in and decide which one is like the original form when you fill them in. And I was really, really compelled by this exercise because like this idea of filling in form or trying to make something whole again really felt kind of very reflective of the process of recovering from an injury in general. Kind of yearning to try to get to a place of wholeness or get back to a place that sort of felt unified and stable, something that may have been lost in a moment of injury, whether it's physical or emotional, rupture happens or fracturing happens. And personally, I'm a fan of kind of respecting ruptures and gaps, and trying to kind of understand or connect with them rather than just like resolve things or close them in. So for me, this was also another catalyst for more research creation and visual. So a lot of the forms in these tests, which were like just kind of interesting graphic kind of illustrative forms, then I started to use those to expand and create my own kind of visual language. And that's some of my research. I was going to ask you as a very quick prompt for a little bit of interactivity as we close up, is to just take a look at this image and see what happens when you really just like take some time with the gaps and the kind of holes and the things that this test asks you to kind of fill in and get to in a kind of clinical way. If you can, if there's any way to use your imagination and just see what comes up when you just really pay attention to and look into these gaps and holes. Imagine maybe they're portals or universes, or maybe you might want to just color them or something. But yeah, so take some time with that, and I'm here to answer any questions as well as we wrap up. I don't know if I can see the chat though. If there's any chat. Cheese. Yes, there's definitely a Swiss cheese vibe to these forms. Like they're all kind of interesting and weird and unique. Yeah. I can feel the frustration. What's an intentional curve versus a missing gap? Yeah, some of these are hard. Honestly, this is just why I was like fumbling. Like it seems easy and some of them are easy and then they get harder and harder. It can be a bit disorienting. Something organic, maybe a germ. Yeah. C looks stressed. It does. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I think like this process of kind of really looking into these images in a non-clinical way can yeah, it's interesting to hear what comes forward or what kind of emotions that become sort of like that enliven these images. So that's me. We have a few more minutes. Does anybody have any questions about anything I shared? Or other thoughts or notes, these exercises. And I know I went through the last part a little bit quickly, but happy to go back. And if not, that's also cool.
I don't have a question, but more just an observation. I thought that was really interesting at the end, when you're talking about the visual closure test and like, how the injury you were experiencing was preventing you from kind of completing this exercise the way that, that you have to, or you're instructed to. It was offering a challenge, but then also like sort of emotionally, psychically on some level, that you resist kind of closing those gaps. I just think that's interesting that you're, for your brain's sake, you were being forced to do this exercise that sort of like resisted us. So something on a deeper, that was, like, the resistance was mirrored on a deeper level for you. I just think that was like quite an interesting parallel.
It is cool. Yeah. I never thought about it like that. But yeah, I think there was a little bit of resistance to just like go following these instructions. And yeah, I guess maybe that's I don't know, maybe it was a bit of fatigue or exhaustion from all the testing that I had to do, where I was like, no, I want to do it my own way. Or maybe it was all from that kind of like feeling a bit stuck or a little bit of paralysis and just wanting to, I don't know, diverge and do and be creative. And that this was like a kind of way into it. Something about this really affected me. And I went back to the optometrist's office and was like taking pictures of these. Nobody had ever like wanted to take photos of this testing, and can't find it really online. It's like in this book. So I just took photos and they were like, what is she doing? But yeah, thanks for that.
I had this little observation and a question. I definitely think the moments in life that makes everything simple and makes you feel very small and start over and appreciate the little things. That's what that's what I felt. Um, at the same time, I was so impressed when you said a project could come from this. The circle situation was very inspiring to me.
Cool.
And so yeah, that is something I will share with you if I
Oh,
continue.
I would love that.
The last thing is I want to know, where are you now in your healing process?
Yeah, I'm a lot better. But I still have, it's been like a little while now, and it took a long time. Um, but the sounds of birds chirping don't hurt. Like that was like a reference. Like birds chirping was were very painful for my head. And so that was always like my kind of point of reference for like how my injury was doing for a while. But I can do a lot more. I still have sound sensitivity and have to wear like earplugs and can't do certain types of activities that I used to do, or get overwhelmed easier. Yeah, capacity is a bit lower. Um, yeah, I think there's just like certain things that I've also come to terms with that like might not ever get back to that, like what my normal was before. But generally a lot better, thank God. And I'm like, I can go to movies and I can, listen to music and it doesn't hurt. So that's
Wow.
nice. Mhm.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. Very inspiring. Thank you for also inspiring us to be creative. Thank you for everyone who came and gave their evening to listen to this inspiring story and this creativity. We have one more session for tonight that I invite all of you all to stay on. We have to get ready for that session, so we're going to close everything out, but then you'll just hit the link again. That session starts at 7:30 p.m. And is titled Death and Taxes, a Clown Politician.
Saw that. I'm very intrigued. Yeah, I just left my email if anybody does want to share like future expansions of what happened today, or has any questions or anything, feel free to get in touch. I would love to know, if anything comes from these, or just see what you did today. So yeah, thank you so much for having me, and for being in this space with me and being open to trying this thing. Really, really appreciate it. It means a lot.